Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere! This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2015-2016 wildcard weekend predictions. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, another NFL season, another NFL regular season, unfortunately has concluded. In some ways, I'm excited. Now it's playoff time, and one of my favorite things I always love to do when watching the playoffs is play the great Jim Mora playoffs quote over and over again, because that's what time it is, and that's just also one of the greatest NFL sound bites in the history of the NFL. But also, it's disappointing because now we're just going to have, 4 games a week for the next 2 weeks, and we only have 2, and then we only have 1. And then the entire season's over. We only have 11 more games to go before, the whole thing's done. And then we have to go through the whole process again. So, in some ways, though, that's a little bit bittersweet, but I had a great regular season, and I want to thank everybody that viewed my videos. I had a big high this year of 830 views, so thank you to all those people that viewed the Week 14 video, I believe. Thank you so much. And I also gained 53 new 53 new subscribers from last year, so I want to thank everybody that has watched my videos over the entire regular season and everybody that has subscribed to my channel over the regular season. I truly appreciate all that support and help. I do these videos for you guys just because I love talking about the game, and I love talking about the different matchups and just giving you my insight. I don't think that I'm, the greatest football mind, but I think I know a good amount to have an objective and balanced point on every issue. And I truly appreciate everybody that's viewed my videos over this year and has subscribed over this entire regular season. And I hope all of you and more will watch my postseason coverage and my postseason picks. So to end the year of the 256 regular game season, I had another 10-win week. I went 10-6 to end the year. And now for the regular season, I ended the year at a record of 159-97. That is a 62.1 win percentage. So I hit my mark again of the lower 60%. So, I do straight up. So for me, that's a good mark. I wanted to get higher, and I wanted to get higher the last couple of years because I've always hit that mark. But hey, if you get over 60% straight up, I think that is pretty good on that perspective. What a crazy week 17 in the NFL. So much movement in the playoff seeding and movement. You saw New England drop from the number 1 seed to the number 2 seed after losing to Miami 20-10. First time in Tom Brady's career that he lost the final 2 games of a regular season. And the first time since 2000 that I believe the Patriots lost back-to-back road divisional games. And also Belichick went 2-4 in that span. That is his worst 6-game stretch to end the year in his tenure as the New England Patriots head coach. Kudos to Ryan Tannehill, second game in his career, over 300 yards passing and 2 touchdowns and no picks. So kudos to him. That's a nice little achievement, but I don't think that Dan Campbell's going to come back because he had, the Dolphins hired him when he went 1-3, and he ended up going 4-8 down the stretch. That's not good enough for me to say you were going to stay as the head coach of this team, and he had 12 games to prove himself. So, the Dolphins are going to be looking for head coaches, just like a lot of people. But when I look at this New England team, just a very quick thing on them, they've been banged up everywhere. They've lost every offensive lineman, basically, for a portion of the season. They haven't had any decent running game. And to go 12-4 and to win the final 2 games to get the number 2 seed, that's an incredible accomplishment for that New England team to be very proud of. And I do believe that, they should get Julian Edelman back. They should get Amendola back. They could get, Devin McCourty and Chung back. They already got Devin McCourty last week. And I do believe that New England team, even with Tom Brady, the postseason's a completely different animal for the New England Patriots. They've been in the last 4 AFC title games, and they know how to win in the postseason. So I'm not going to discount New England, but definitely not the way you would want to enter the postseason. But with that closing, the Denver Broncos opened up their opportunity with a 27-20 win over the San Diego Chargers. And I think the biggest thing that came out of that game was that Gary Kubiak officially instituted a quarterback controversy. Because Brock Osweiler got pulled in the second half for Peyton Manning after he had 5 turnovers, I believe, in the 5 turnovers in the first half. Oh yeah, by the way, that's kind of really pathetic for Phillip Rivers, in my opinion, that he had 5 turnovers. And I know the offense, there's really nobody on there. But when you have 5 turnovers and you only can get 10 points, and I understand Denver's defense is good, but that's a problem because to be -4 in a turnover differential and only put up 10 points to let Manning come back, that's pretty bad on Rivers' part. And everybody can say, well, the offensive line was bad. Rivers only got sacked 3 times. And to me, when an offensive line gives up 3 sacks, it's kind of like it's kind of like an average game for a pitcher in baseball. When a pitcher gives up 3 runs, that's not particularly the amount of runs that you want to give up. Like, that's a bad number, but it's not like he gave up 6 or 7. And you could say, well, that was all the line's fault. So, and by the way, Austin Davis got sacked 6 times, and Stafford and Jay Cutler got sacked 4 times each. So they got sacked even more than Rivers did, and Rivers was working with a patchwork offensive line. But I digress. So, for Denver, though, with now Peyton coming in, they put up 20 points after Brock left. And Brock's only score came in the first play of the game when he threw a screen to Thomas, and Thomas ran it 72 yards for the touchdown. And now, Gary Kubiak's put this quarterback controversy back in, and I do believe that is a problem. And I do think now, with how well Peyton looked in the offense, people are going to say, if Peyton can be about 80 to 85% healthy, that he should start. And to me, I look at Peyton Manning and say, why not? It's something where Peyton looked good enough, if he can get healthy, if his foot can look good, because he is going to get another week of rest, he should be able to have this opportunity. And the Broncos are primed for getting home field advantage, because I think, again, Denver playing KC or Houston, whoever wins that game, or playing Pittsburgh or Cincy, I think that they'd rather play Cincy than Pittsburgh, because I think I trust Denver with Manning than I would be facing the Pittsburgh offense right now. And by the way, congratulations for Pittsburgh for getting in the playoffs after the Jets pulled a Jets-type game in the last game of the year. Ryan Fitzmagic turned into Ryan Fitzhat-trick of interceptions. Oh yeah, there we go. Ryan Fitzmagic did have a lot of magic. He had a hat trick of interceptions that cost the Jets the game. And it actually was also the first time in franchise history for the Jets that they won 10 games in the season, but they did not make the playoffs. However, Todd Bowles should be commended. This team has a lot of good talent around it. And I do think that, again, depending on Fitzpatrick, that's going to be a sour note to end his tenure with the Jets or this year. And that's going to be definitely a damper in a lot of the Jets fans' minds that I don't think a lot of them will forgive him for. But I do believe that he should be re-signed. And I think that if he does get re-signed, it should be about a $7 to $9 million deal. That's how much Ryan Fitzpatrick's worth to me. And again, for what he did, that's good enough. And also, he's old enough, I think he would understand as well. So kudos to the Steelers for that. But going back to Denver, they just have the right environment. And if they had to play New England, Tom Brady is 2-6 all-time on the road in Denver. So definitely the Patriots, if there was one place they did not want to go into, and the last time they played the Broncos in Denver in the postseason, they lost the AFC title. So definitely for Denver, that is the best scenario. And some other key things here I already mentioned about the Steelers. Kudos to the Vikings for winning the NFC North in a shocking upset of the Packers. It was 20-13, and I couldn't believe what Aaron Rodgers did in the final moments of that game, throwing that interception after Mason Crosby, the kicker, stripped Cordero Patterson of the football. At that moment, I thought the Packers were destined to either were going to win the game. I thought Rodgers was going to drive down, and he was going to, tie the game, and the Packers were going to use all that momentum to win the game. So, but that didn't happen, and Minnesota won for the first time in Lambeau since Week 8 of 2009. And Adrian Peterson only got his second win against the Packers all time. The only other time he won was 2012, the last week of 2012, in at the Metrodome. So kudos to Adrian Peterson for getting only his second career win against the Packers. All right, time for my picks for the wildcard weekend games. So this weekend, when the 5 seed Kansas City Chiefs go to the 4 seed Houston Texans, I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs. And that game is at 4:35 on ESPN and ABC. And then in the night game on Saturday, when the 6-seeded Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 3-seeded Cincinnati Bengals on CBS, I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then on Sunday, when the 6-seeded Seattle Seahawks go to the 3-seeded Minnesota Vikings on NBC at 1:05 Eastern, I am taking the Seattle Seahawks. And then in the nightcap on Sunday, when the 5-seeded Green Bay Packers go to the 4-seeded Washington Redskins, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. All right, time for my thoughts on each game. Kansas City at Houston. Andy Reid, if it wasn't for Ron Rivera and the Panthers, congratulations, by the way, Carolina. 7th team in NFL history to win 15 games in a year. Absolutely routed the Bucks, and you've won 10 straight games at home. So that's definitely a confidence booster for this team to say that they can continue moving forward. But Kansas City, after going 1-5, they've won 10 straight games. That's a franchise record with 10 straight victories. And this Kansas City team right now just has a vibe of they don't care how they win. They don't care what the deficit is. They know that in their mind they can beat anybody and play their kind of football. And that kind of football is old school. Let's run the ball. Let's have defense. And let's, throw passes when we need to. Kansas City, is 27th in yards per game. That's not really good. They're, on offense. They're 27 yards per game, but they're 9th in points per game on offense. So let's think about that. So the Kansas City offense does not move the ball often. But when they do move the ball, they score a good amount of the time. And then when you look at Kansas City's defense, the bright spot of this team for the last couple years, during this whole entire run, they've improved their defense to 3rd defensively in points per game, and they have not given up a 100-yard rusher in 5 games. And with, the running back committees of both teams, I don't expect Alfred Blue and Grimes and their fullback to do the same thing in Houston. And when you look at Houston, they've won 3 straight games, and they've won 7 of their last 9 to go from 2-5 to 9-7. First AFC South title since the 2012 season. So kudos to Bill O'Brien for improving his stock and showing that, again, he still has his mulligan in his pocket because he improved the team to a point of they're hosting a playoff game. And actually, Houston is 2-0 in the wild card round. They made their first 2 playoff appearances against Cincinnati, and they beat Dalton both times with Schaub at quarterback. So definitely Houston has the edge in that perspective. And the defense, though, has been really powering this team. I guess no surprise. In 5 of their 7 wins during that 9-game stretch, the defense only allowed 6 points, including the last 2 weeks against the division rivals, Tennessee and Houston. And by the way, I believe that's 22 divided by 3. They've given up a little bit over 7 points per game during the last 3 games against the entire division. Again, you could argue that the entire division's bad. That's true, but that's still pretty impressive to have less than 7 points a game, a little bit over 7 points per game in the last 3 games on defense. J.J. Watt had a phenomenal game. It was his first game about his cast, by the way, which I think is really important. He had 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and 5 overall tackles, and he leads the league with 17.5 sacks. And I think over the last 3 years, over the last 2 years, he's had 37.5 sacks in his career. He has about 60 or 70 sacks, which I think is the most in a 4-year span ever. So kudos to Mr. J.J. Watt, best defensive player in the game. I do believe he'll win Defensive Player of the Year because of everything that Jadeveon Clowney couldn't do again, and I give that Houston defense a lot of credit. So to get back to this game, this game is very old school, and it's going to be a grind-out, hard-nosed, run-the-ball, game-managed from the quarterbacks kind of game. And you look at these two teams, and they're very similar in how they both turned around to get into this position. Kansas City went from 1-5 after losing to Chicago in Week 6 to now 11-5, and Houston, after I believe week 8, was at 2-5, and then they ended up being 9-7. So both teams had to deal with tremendous injuries on the defense, and they both didn't have their star running backs to season-ending injuries. Jamal Charles tore his ACL, while Arian Foster tore his Achilles, and they've had to basically just run by committee. Alex Smith, the one advantage, the one thing I will give Houston credit for is that they've had to use 4 different QBs this year. Brandon Whedon, Ryan Mallett, Brian Hoyer, and TJ Yates. So I think that's impressive. But when I look at these two teams, I just feel that Kansas City, just based on talent, just has more talent at certain areas. I think that Jarkandrick West and Spencer Ware are better running backs than what Houston has. The offensive lines, I got to give KC a little bit of an edge there. Best of luck to Dwayne Brown. I was watching the Houston-Jacksonville game. He suffered a pretty bad injury. He had to get carted off. Hopefully he gets better. I don't expect him to play, which would be huge because he's been their big left tackle. And it just comes down to, I think that when you have games like this where, again, you have one big wide receiver for both teams, even though I will give DeAndre Hopkins the edge over Jeremy Maclin because Hopkins has been just phenomenal over his entire career. I have to go to the quarterback, and I will take Alex Smith and what he's done over what Brian Hoyer's done. And this is really amazing that we're going to have a playoff game with Alex Smith and Brian Hoyer as the starting quarterbacks of 2 playoff teams. And to me also, I think KC, they have a lot of motivation. They have lost 8 straight playoff games since their last playoff win. Their last playoff win was Joe Montana's last great comeback in 1993 in the AFC divisional round when he beat the run-and-shoot Houston Oilers. So, yeah, they're tied with the Lions for the longest active losing streak in the playoffs with 8 games. So, I think that they're motivated by that, and they know that if they win this playoff game, an entire burden will be lifted off Kansas City's shoulders. And I just think, again, Houston and KC, both teams are really playing with house money. Both teams really weren't expected, I believe, to make the playoffs, or just they wanted to make the playoffs. So whoever wins or loses, it's just dressing on the salad, to say. But I'm going to take KC here just because I trust KC's secondary a bit more. They have more talent there. The defensive lines are a push. And again, when you have teams like this, when they're just about the same, I got to go with the quarterback, and I'm going to take Alex Smith to beat Brian Hoyer. And Kansas City beat Houston in Week 1, 27-20. But that really wasn't even a contest because that ended up going to 27-6 before Hoyer got pulled. And by the way, Brian Hoyer's first pass as a Texan was intercepted by Marcus Peters. So, so that was a great way to start his career as a Texan. So, again, this game should be fun. It's going to be hard-nosed, but I'm going to take KC. I trust the defense more. It's more talented, and I have to trust Alex Smith at quarterback over Brian Hoyer. So that's what I'm going to take Kansas City to beat Houston. Pittsburgh over Cincinnati. Pittsburgh, congratulations. You've secured your 23rd 10-win season in franchise history. The way the Jets played, Pittsburgh's team showed up to play against the Cleveland Browns. Ben's only lost 2 times in his career against them, both in Cleveland. And actually, I thought after Craig Robertson threw that, after Ben threw that interception to Robertson, I thought the Browns could have capitalized. But only in Browns fashion does Austin Davis throw an interception to a 37-year-old linebacker that's dropping into coverage in James Harrison, his first pick of the year. So Pittsburgh showed up to play and the Jets didn't, so now they're in. And I think Pittsburgh is that scary team on offense that nobody wants to play. They gave New England a pretty good fight. And they also beat Denver. And they can beat KC and they can beat Houston. And I think Pittsburgh now with Ben, even though KC beat Houston in Week 7, that was with Landry Jones. With Ben, I wouldn't see that outcome coming to fruition. In Cincinnati, they have all the pressure on the world on them. Because, again, this is Cincinnati's 6th trip to the playoffs in the last 7 years and the 5th straight playoff appearance or 5th consecutive playoff appearance since 2011. And they have the longest streak of not winning a playoff game. It's been 26 years. The last time the Bengals won a playoff game was the 1990 wildcard game with Boomer Esiason when they beat the Houston Oilers. So definitely the Bengals and the Chiefs are trying to get past the Oiler movement and say they can beat somebody else beside the Houston Oilers. And Cincinnati over the last 3 years at home has been absolutely, dominant for the most part. 19-4-1 at home over the last 3 years, but their most recent loss against Pittsburgh was at home when they beat Cincy 33-20. But that was when Andy Dalton went down with a thumb injury, and I believe that they said that Dalton, he's going to go in today to look at his thumb, and he's optimistic that he can play, and I hope he plays, because if the Bengals lose, and I'm going to say this to all the Bengals, I don't want any more excuses from the Bengals fans saying that Marvin Lewis, if Dalton plays, just if that caveat, if Dalton doesn't play, okay, you have your excuse for next year, or this year that he didn't have Dalton, and Dalton's had a Pro Bowl year, and I can buy that, or I'll accept that. But I hope he plays, because if they lose again, which I think they will, that will give no excuse for Bengals fans to say what was wrong with this team that they could not win a playoff game. So, I hope that happens. Well, I'm saying if. I'm not wanting the Bengals to lose, but if they do, I want everybody to be healthy so everybody can finally put the blame on Marvin Lewis and not give him another scapegoat to go for a 6th season. And again, Pittsburgh's defense, I know a lot of people, they're one of the worst in yards per game, but in a lot of other categories, they're pretty good. Pittsburgh's defense is third in the league with sacks at, I believe, 49. And they're 6th in the league with 14 interceptions, which is incredibly impressive. And also, but I think, though, it's hard to play Cincy. Their turnover differential in the league is at plus 11, which is 3rd in the league. And the one thing that I'm going to hope about this game is that Andy Dalton, just in the postseason, just does not play very well at all. In 4 postseason games in the last 4 years, his stats are he's completed 55.7% of his passes for 873 yards, 1 touchdown, and 6 interceptions. In 2 of those 4 playoff games, he didn't even throw for 200 yards. So, to me, this is all on Andy. He got paid $96 million by this organization. He thought, they thought he was a franchise quarterback. And I do believe that he is a good quarterback. But the Bengals have to win this game because at this point, like me or a majority of people, it's even going to add more fodder, that nobody outside of Cincinnati will care what the Bengals do in the regular season as long as Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton are there. Nobody will care. And Bengals fans, and I might sound critical, but I'm just being Bengals fans can celebrate, maybe sweeping us again. You beat us 5 straight times. We haven't beat you since week 17 of 2013. So congrats to the Bengals for that. I will say that. But nobody will care what regular season stats AJ Green has. Nobody will care what Andy Dalton does in the regular. Nobody will care about that entire team for every regular season until the postseason. Until Marvin Lewis or Andy Dalton leave. Nobody will care. And that's always an issue because there's a lot of teams out there that would love those wins, but those teams don't make the playoffs. When you make 5 straight playoff appearances and you don't have a win, something has to change. But that's the thing, is that people are just not going to care. And I know Bengal fans, that might sound harsh, and I don't want to sound like, I am criticized, but I don't want to sound too harsh. But what I'm saying is that you have to just, realize that you can support, you can holler and cheer for all the regular season games you won, and all the regular season wins. Heck, you could go even 16-0. Nobody will care. Nobody will care because they will just go back to you and say, it's the postseason. We know what the Bengals have done in the postseason for the last several years. So, I'm going to take Pittsburgh. I hope D'Angelo Williams can play. He has an ankle injury, which is big. And he might not play, so that's going to be a huge blow. But I think that, Pittsburgh, if they have a good enough running game and they've relied on it enough that I do believe that they can still have a decent running game against this Bengals team. And also they have Antonio Brown, who has a new friend, who has a new career high and franchise high in yards, and he also is tied with Julio Jones for receptions at 136. And he also broke his own single franchise record in the season with 136 receptions. So that's pretty impressive when you can break your own record. So again, I'm going to take Pittsburgh in this game. I trust the defense enough. And there's just something about me just going, even if the Steelers don't have that lack of running game, I just don't trust the Bengals in the postseason. If it's Dalton or McCarron, I'll feel better about McCarron because he just played this team a few weeks ago and he didn't look that good. But I hope it's Dalton because if Dalton lays another brick and this team is fully healthy because Tyler Eifert returned, they pretty much have their offensive line, they pretty much have their secondary, and they pretty much have their defense. That team will be fully loaded for the first time, in a playoff game, maybe ever. This is the most talented team the Bengals have had in years. If they don't win, I do not want any excuses from the Bengals fans for a reason to keep Marvin Lewis. Because I don't think there would be one. So, again, I'm going to take Pittsburgh. I trust the offense enough, and I don't trust the Cincinnati Bengals in the postseason. If they win this game, kudos to them, and I will eat all the crow from Bengals fans and Bengals supporters for all the comments I made in this video. I will take it with a grain of salt. So, again, that's what I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Seattle over Minnesota. Minnesota, again, congrats for the first division title since 2009 and the first one in Lambeau Field since Week 8 of 2009. I know I said it earlier. But also congratulations to Adrian Peterson for his third rushing title. He ended with 1,485 yards. What a tremendous story for him to come back from all the controversy that was around him last year. To go from the exempt list to the NFL rushing leader at age about 30, that's really impressive. And, when I look at this Vikings team, it's very Chief-esque. The Chiefs play, good defense. They run the ball effectively, and they have their quarterback, make the throws when he needs to. The Vikings, fourth best running attack in the NFL at 138.2 yards per game. They have the fifth best defense in yards. And also, Teddy Bridgewater, this is a great stat. Teddy Bridgewater this year in 9 games, when he's thrown for under 200 yards, they're 8-1. So to me, here's how I would classify Teddy Bridgewater. He is not as good as Alex Smith, but he's better than Christian Ponder. Because I think a lot of people, if you look at those stats of what I said, or just that little stat of an 8-1 record when he's thrown for under 200 yards, that's Christian Ponder-esque in 2012, when Ponder had bad games. I believe Bridgewater is better than Ponder, but he's not like Alex Smith. So that's what he is as a quarterback. And kudos to the Vikings. This is the team that improved by 4 games. They're in the playoffs. They have a home game for the first time since 2009, and it's a tremendous record. However, you are playing a team that has won 8 of their final 10 games and just put a 30-point whipping on the Arizona Cardinals after the Cardinals got 30 points, put a 30-point whipping on the Packers. That must be bad. That must feel really bad. And here's the sad thing for Arizona, just real quick. Last year, when they didn't have Palmer and nobody around, they lost 35. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. They lost 35-6. So this year, when they have everybody, maybe besides Tyrann Mathieu, they lose 36-6. So that must be a really bad sign. To say that even when everybody was healthy in Arizona, they still got whipped in Arizona by 30 points. So again, the Seahawks, when you look at what they've done, or Russell Wilson, my God, what a year he's had. He broke David Craig's franchise record for most TD passes in a single season with 34. And also, he became the first Seahawks quarterback with 4,000 yards. No Seahawks quarterback in their franchise history had thrown for 4,000 yards until Russell Wilson did. So that's incredibly impressive to me for him. And also, Russell Wilson, since Week 11, he's played like the MVP of the league. I know Cam Newton's going to get it because Cam's 15-1 and he's had a much better year as a team. But Russell Wilson, since week 11, 71% completion percentage, 1,906 yards, 24 touchdowns to only 1 interception. That's incredible football down the stretch. And not many QBs have been better than that. And again, when I look at this game, Seattle beat Minnesota by 31 back in, I believe, week 12. And the Legion of Boom defense held the Vikings to 125 yards of offense. That was the lowest amount of yards given up by the Seahawks from their defense in 10 years. And they also should be getting Marshawn Lynch back, which is huge. Marshawn Lynch returning to this team. If Russell Wilson keeps playing like the way he's been playing, look out. This Seattle team, they're hot at the right time. They have all the motivation because nobody expects Seattle to go back to a third straight Super Bowl. And they would join the 90s Bills, the 1990-1994 Bills to be the first team since then to make 3 straight Super Bowls. Do I think that the Vikings are going to get blown out by 31 this time? Absolutely not. This Vikings team, they're disciplined, they're motivated, and ever since that loss, they've looked like the Vikings that we've seen the entire year. However, if they have Marshawn Lynch back, I just don't see how the Vikings offense can put up enough points to where the Seahawks can take advantage. Because Russell Wilson's been a lot more accurate than Bridgewater has been. Tyler Lockett's turned out to be an incredible player. At one point in the second quarter yesterday against the Arizona Cardinals, he had more return yards than Arizona had yards of offense in the game, which is incredible. He is going to be a Devin Hester type of returner because I believe he is that good. He's that special. But again, when I look at this team, Seattle just has too much offensive firepower, and even if their offense doesn't do that well, I believe their defense has enough in it that they can hold the Vikings to less points than what the Seahawks can score. Again, I'm going to like this game because I think Minnesota, they have all the motivation and they have all the bulletin board material. But when you're playing a Seattle team that's had the bulletin board material since the Super Bowl, and knowing the fact that Seattle can get a chance to go back to the Super Bowl and avenge what happened last year, I think that's going to be enough motivation of how good this teams are playing all around to be enough to win this game for the Vikings and give Russell Wilson, I believe he'll be the second quarterback in NFL history to go into his first 4 years into the playoffs and win a playoff game in each of those 4 years since my quarterback did it in 2008 through 2011, Joe Flacco. So kudos to Russell Wilson for that and the Seahawks, and that's why I'm taking the Seahawks to beat the Vikings. And finally, the Packers over the Redskins. This is how rare it was for Green Bay to lose to Minnesota and the entire year for the Green Bay Packers. For the first time since 1968, the Green Bay Packers were swept at home by the entire division. The Lions won in Lambeau for the first time in 22 years. Jay Cutler got his first official win over Aaron Rodgers. And the Vikings just won in Lambeau, like I said earlier, for the first time in 7 years. That's how much of a struggle this Green Bay Packers team has gone through this year. After starting 6-0, the Packers, they lost 6 of their final 10 games, which is not good. And to me, when you look at Green Bay's offense this year and defense, Aaron Rodgers has put up a good year. Not a great year, not a Aaron Rodgers standard type of year. But he still put up a good year. I think he has about almost 4,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. For most other quarterbacks, you would want those numbers. So Aaron Rodgers is having a good year. Maybe not by his standards, but he's having a good year overall. But the Green Bay offense, though, is never really that good. They're 23rd in yards per game, and they're 15th in defense. So they're an average defense. And they're playing a Redskins team that is on a roll. First winning record since 2012, and they've won 4 straight games to get into the dance. Kirk Cousins, who said that they couldn't win a road game, has won 3 straight. So that has to be some confidence for him that he can say, okay, hey, I can go on the road and win games. And the Redskins are trying to win them. And, congratulations to Kirk Cousins. He broke Jay Schrodinger, franchise record for passing yards in a single season with 4,166 yards. Sorry for that bad pronunciation. He has a tough name to say. And And the Redskins are trying to win a playoff game for the first time in over a decade. Since '05 when they beat Tampa in the wild card game. And actually, I was really upset the Vikings won because I wanted the Redskins to host Seattle. Because here's a fun stat I don't think anybody knows: the last 3 times the Redskins have been in the playoffs, the Seahawks have knocked out the Redskins 3 straight times. Yeah, so the only team the Redskins had played at that point in the playoffs was Seattle, and they lost to Seattle 3 straight times in the playoffs. So I thought that'd be really interesting to see that. But that didn't happen, and now they're playing the Packers. And this is how rare of a game this is for these two teams. The last time the Redskins hosted the Packers in the playoffs, you have to go back to the 1972 divisional round on Christmas Eve. So, this is a rare game for a playoff game for Washington to host the Green Bay Packers. And I think the biggest advantage, though, for the Redskins, though, is that it's at home. Kirk Cousins at home this year has been absolutely phenomenal. For the year, he has at home 74.7% completion percentage, 2,170 yards, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 6-2 record. He hasn't even thrown an interception at home since week 1. So, at home, Kirk Cousins is basically almost unstoppable. And I think for the Redskins to have this home game, it's a huge blessing for them to have it. Well, for Kirk Cousins on the road, he ended up going 3-5 on the road, even though he won his final 3 road games, which does give a little bit of confidence. But when I look at this game, you got Green Bay. It's just hard to say for me that Aaron Rodgers is going to lose his final 3 games and to lose 7 out of 11 games. That's just not very Aaron Rodgers-like. And to me, Aaron Rodgers, if he loses, this will be his 4th one and done in 7 years. And to me, if he does that, if Peyton Manning retires this year, Aaron Rodgers will be the modern-day Peyton Manning. And let me explain that, okay, to my standard. If they lose this game to Washington, which they do have a chance to lose, I'll put it like this. Green Bay's at about 55% me to win. Washington's at 45. 10% difference. What I mean by Aaron Rodgers being Peyton Manning is, for Packers fans, for whoever watch my videos, I will not care what this man does for every regular season for the rest of it. I will not care. He can throw for 4,800 yards. He can throw for 39 touchdowns. He can only throw 4 interceptions. He could have one of the greatest quarterback ratings ever. I think he actually has the highest QB rating in the history of the league right now through his career. I will not care, because what I'm going to say is just like with Cincinnati. Until you get to the playoffs and win games, that's when I'll start caring. Because at that point, when Aaron Rodgers doing it over and over again, it's what I've expected Aaron Rodgers to do for every single year of his regular season. And that's what I felt like with Peyton Manning as his career dragged on, or as his career drags on. That nobody really cares, maybe besides this year because of how bad it was, but nobody really cared. It was white noise when Peyton Manning threw for 4,000 yards, 45 touchdowns, no intercept. It was just a bunch of white noise. Because it happened every single year and everybody just expected it. And that's what I'm going to say with the Packers. If Aaron Rodgers next year, if he loses, I'm not, okay, the Packers won his, division title again. So what? That's what I'll say. Until the playoffs, that's what I'm going to feel about Aaron Rodgers. That I'm not going to care about his playoff game or about his regular season. He's going to be in that Andy Dalton category to me that just literally he can do anything he wants. It's not going to impress me because I expect it. So, but again, I do not expect it to happen. I do expect him to get his 7th playoff win of his career just because I look at this Packer team and go, you have to beat the Redskins. Like with Aaron Rodgers and all this team, I know Cousins has better weapons, you could argue, around him, and a better offensive line, and, they haven't been banged up, and they might have better corners, even though the Redskins lost one of their corners to an injury, and the Packers also lost one of their, Dante Jones, went down with an injury for them. But when I look at this game, I just have to go, Green Bay just has to find a way to win this game. I just think they will. I think, Lacey can have a decent game on the ground. Rodgers will have a great game against this Redskins secondary, which has been beat up and not really good at times. And I think Kirk Cousins, he's going to crack a little bit under the pressure. This is his first playoff game. And even though, again, he's playing with house money. He is. because nobody expected the Redskins to be in the playoffs in the first place. But just with how these two teams are, I just think Aaron Rodgers, with what he has around him, and he just has enough experience and enough fortitude, hopefully, to say, I will win this game for this team and move on to play either the Panthers or the Falcons. Or the Cardinals and the Panthers. So those are my thoughts on all the games this week. Please like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please tell me what games you disagree with in the Wild Card Weekend, if you disagree with any. And also, everybody out there, please check out this Wednesday. I'm going to put a link in my description. I'm going to put a link in my description on Wednesday night. It's the NFL YouTube Prognosticator Playoff Hangout, where I will be hosting a playoff hangout with Gio Knows and Billy B from the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page, where we'll be talking all about every playoff game this Wild Card Weekend and just about the entire playoff picture now that it's set. So everybody out there, please watch the stream and please comment. Feel free to comment. We are going to have a great time, and we'd love everybody's feedback from that. So please check that out. And one more thing, it is Black Monday, and the firings already began. I feel bad for Jim Tomsula. He got fired by the Niners after one bad year where everybody left. And I feel bad. I don't feel bad for Mike Penn. He really didn't do that much. But you're going to have all these coaches fired. And the one coach that I just can't quite understand that hasn't got fired is Jeff Fisher. Here's a great thing that I found out today. Jeff Fisher will become only the third coach in NFL history since the merger. Only Dave Shula and Lou Saban, since 1970, have had 4 consecutive losing seasons. And they brought back for a 5th term. However, both those guys in their 5th term did not finish their 5th term. So hopefully for Jeff Fisher, if this team, which I don't see it much improving, unless they get a quarterback, he should be fired in his 5th term. So hopefully that happens. So that's a quick little ending match stat there about Jeff Fisher's amazing streak of mediocrity and staying. So that's it. So please like, comment, rate, subscribe. Again, please let me know. And please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Hangout. And that's it. So good luck to all players, coaches, teams, fantasy players. If you're playing playoff fantasy, I'm not, but I know people are. And fellow prognosticators, and until next week for the divisional round, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Until next time. So long.